Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to our Safe Money podcast today from Piatchek Retirement Consultants. And I'm visiting today with my cousin Joe. He is the managing attorney at Piatchek Law Firm. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here today. The reason we asked Joe to come in is that many of our clients in the last over 20 some odd years always have lots of questions about estate planning. Powers of attorney, wills, trusts, and the needs for estate planning. So I asked Joe to join us today with the top 4 questions that our clients have. And so we're going to get started. Is that okay with you, Joe?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first one, and we always find this to be one of the most important, is, Joe, who makes decisions if I can't?
Well, that is a great question, and that is a question that more people probably ought to ask, and they don't sometimes think. I think people are so centered on what happens when I die, they forget to think about what happens if I become incapacitated. So here's the thing. So if I lose capacity tomorrow, and meaning I can't make my decisions, whether financial or healthcare, there isn't necessarily anyone to make my decisions. And so that the question in and of itself, who can make my decisions? If I can't do it myself, one thing that people look at is I may have to have guardianship, which is where you ask the court to appoint someone to make my legal decisions, my day-to-day decisions, and then conservatorship is the same thing, but to make financial decisions. So it would be, not terribly uncommon to file for guardianship and conservatorship so that I now have the power to make decisions for this incapacitated person. So then the question is, who's the suitable person to do that? Well, if I'm married, probably my spouse, I imagine. Now, if I'm not married, maybe I've got grown kids. Maybe they agree. Maybe they don't agree. Maybe they fight about. Maybe they all agree I should that I'm incapacitated, but they completely disagree on who should be the decision maker. Maybe some of them think, I'm not incapacitated. So there's all kinds of things. So again, this gets into the idea of doing a little bit of planning. You can take a lot of this element of surprise. But the bottom line is, if you don't have somebody to make decisions, you don't have somebody to make decisions. And then those are the kind of options you're going to look at. Whereas if you plan in advance, there's some much easier, cheaper, much nicer ways to do things.
Great answer. And the next question we have is, what happens if you pass away without having done any estate planning? What does that look like? I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah, so a lot of different things can go on. So first of all, if I pass away with no will, and let's just say that I have a home and a car, let's make this simple, a home, a car, and a bank account. And I'm the only one on it. There's no joint titling. And then let's say that there's no payable on death, there's no transfer on death designation, which already you're seeing all the variations that can occur on how things are titled. Then basically state law says who my heirs are. So what's called the laws of intestate succession, which is fancy words to basically just say who gets my stuff if I die. So sometimes I'll get a call where people say, but I don't have any heirs. Everybody has heirs. The state of Missouri makes sure that you have heirs. So another way I'll say it sometimes is you have an estate plan whether you know it or not. Missouri has devised one for you. Now here's the thing. You may not like what it is, but you've got one. Let me give you an example. If I die and I'm married and I have no kids, my spouse would get anything that kind of gets stuck in my name. Now these things have to go through probate, which is a whole... if I don't have beneficiaries listed on it, if I don't do some superior planning, quite likely things have to go through probate. But the end result would be things go to my spouse. If I have no spouse but I have kids, well, things would go to my kids in equal shares. Now, here's an interesting one that catches people by surprise. If I have spouse and kids, Missouri law doesn't say my spouse gets everything. It actually says spouse gets half, kids get half in equal shares. So I've had lots of situations where there's grown kids. And, let's say a husband passes away, survived by his wife, and now she's got to split everything with the kids. So anyway, long story short is there's a whole section, a whole part of Missouri code that says who gets what if you pass away. Now, if you write your will, if you write your trust, if you set up payable on death designations, transfer on death designations, beneficiary designations, you can basically override those state laws that I've been talking about are default laws. They can be overridden. And most people, in most cases, you do want to override that because you want to avoid probate, and then you want to make sure that you control who gets what, not leave it up to the state of Missouri and kind of what our legislators decided.
Great answer. Yeah, I agree with that. And you answered the other question I had is who gets my savings and possessions. One of the things that we see a lot of, Joe, and this is kind of dear to my heart, my wife's parents both in a nursing home, and my wife, Terry, to get anything done on the financial side, having a power of attorney was so critical. She literally carried that with her wherever she went.
Yeah.
And especially if we're facing a long-term care event, there's about a 70% chance everybody's going to need assisted living, home care, or some type of nursing care, which is incredibly expensive. It can literally wipe people out.
Yeah.
And folks will say, well, would it be wise to look at something to help protect me there? Not only in addition to the facts that we have plans that help folks with that, but tell me, what's the purpose of a power of attorney, and how can that be helpful to someone who's incapacitated, or their surviving spouse, or if it's a parent can't make decisions on their own? How does that work, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so a few moments ago we talked about guardianship and conservatorship for when people don't make a plan. Then someone loses capacity, they can't make decisions. That's basically my choice: is I go get guardianship and conservatorship, which is a long process. Power of attorney is I've always considered that kind of a alternative to that. That's much cheaper, quicker, and easier. So a power of attorney is it's literally where I just and there's formalities that have to be observed, but basically it's just a document that says who can make decisions for me. Now, power of attorney, there's lots of different types and lots of different kind of continuums here on how it might work. But one of those is springing versus immediate. So a power of attorney could be immediate, just like it sounds. That means I sign this piece of paper today, and I've nominated you to make my decision. So let's say that's an immediate financial power of attorney. That means right now, as soon as I sign it, you can go start making all these financial decisions. Same thing for an immediate healthcare power of attorney. Or maybe I make you power of attorney to go title my vehicle because I'm going to be out of the country and I need you to do something. So again, those are kind of immediate examples. Most of the time when I think of power of attorney, I'm not thinking about immediate, although that does happen. I'm thinking more of a springing power of attorney, which, for example, all springing means is that it's going to come into effect at some point. It's going to spring into effect at some point in the future. Mm-hmm. So let me give you a very basic example that we see every day. A springing power of attorney for healthcare finances that says, if and when I lose my capacity and two doctors write a letter and certify that I have indeed lost my capacity, then and only then, Tim is now my decision maker. Mm-hmm. And then furthermore, if Tim can't do it, person B will do it. And if they can't do it, person C will do it. So that's where I see power of attorneys a lot, as part of an estate plan. There's a will, there's trust, there's again all payable on death designations. There's all kinds of things people might do, and people tend to think about healthcare decisions. Sometimes people forget about those financial decisions. Okay. So yeah, financial power of attorney that springs into effect. So you're not giving up anything if it's springing. You still make all your own decisions. But in the event you actually become incapacitated, two doctors say so, then, and it's normally going to be like a spouse or a close loved one that's going to make those decisions. But that's generally how power of attorneys work and kind of what their purpose is.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's very helpful. When we work with our clients, Joe, we try to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And what we find out, if they could do all their planning, their investments, their retirement, and not having that one piece when it comes to the legal part can devastate them or their family when someone becomes sick or ill and they haven't spent a little bit of money to have that completed. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. So, and you're right on. So I'm sure in your world and my world, that one piece which could be different pieces, right? Mm-hmm. But that one piece they tend to miss is probably a little different in our world. But man, the one you hit on it, the one piece that I see over and over is the financial power of attorney. Right. I know I need a will of trust. I know I need a healthcare power of attorney. My doctor's office even asked me last time I was there. But people forget about that financial power of attorney. And by the way, by financial power of attorney, when I say the word financial, and any attorney says that, it really means everything in the world That's not healthcare. So think about this.
Right.
If you were incapacitated tomorrow, think of the decisions you've made in the last 5 years. Dealing with the Department of Revenue, dealing with the IRS, dealing with social organizations or social entities or Social Security,
Mhm.
governmental entities, dealing with real estate, dealing with personal property. All of that's under financial. So it's if I can't make those decisions suddenly, it's a big deal.
Oh yeah.
And so that power of attorney is very helpful in that.
Well, Joe, thanks for joining us today. Is there anything you might want to add to that? I know there's no way we're going to be able to cover everything today,
Sure.
but I hope everybody out there listening will take into account the fact of as part of your planning and retirement, and those having all those pieces of the puzzle together is so critically important. But Joe, you have anything to add to that?
No, I just appreciate being here today. I'd be happy to anybody who's watching this that would like to talk to me. Call me anytime. But
What's the best? I was going to say, what's the best way for someone to reach you?
yeah, as far as our phone number, 417-882-5858. By the way, my personal you can call the number generally, or my extension to me personally is 3030. We also have a couple of different websites that you can go to. Our main website is at ozarkslawfirm.com. And that is our main site. We also have another site, affordablelegalservicesllc.com, that tends to focus a little bit more on certain services offered at a reasonable flat rate, such as uncontested divorces, traffic tickets, some of the other things we're not necessarily talking about today. But
yeah, when they just to end here, do they usually need to bring any paperwork or anything in, or is the first visit just kind of a consultative where you just kind of talk with them? What does that look
yeah,
like?
so I can tell you a little bit about that's a great question. I can tell you a little bit about our process is, so when say someone calls or emails us or contacts us off our website, we're going to engage in a little bit of conversation. It's usually going to end in us setting up some sort of first consultation, which is generally free especially when the person's doing brand new planning. So we would set them up this consultation. We send them an intake questionnaire that we ask them to fill out. That's going to basically ask, what do you have? And what do you want to happen to it? And then we're going to ask you to bring that to the first meeting. And then we're going to sit down for somewhere between, could be 30 minutes, could be 90 minutes. It's usually somewhere in between there, depending on how many questions they have. And then we're going to go off that questionnaire, and then we're going to get into talking about all kinds of different things. And sometimes people come in and they have a really good notion for what they want to do. And then sometimes people come in and have no idea. Or sometimes people come in thinking they want to do something, but once we talk, it turns out, well, no, I really don't want to do it that way. I want to do this other. So we see all kinds of things, but that's generally how it would work.
Sounds great. Well, thanks for being here, Joe. Everybody out there, appreciate you for joining us today. If we can be of any help to you in these areas, feel free to contact me or Joe. And we want to thank you. We hope you have a great day.